On today's show, we're going to be speaking to a young man from America who, at a very young age, has learned how to rewire the brain to help you to live a very fulfilling life. Now, I found this really interesting because as a therapist, I see a lot of people, and I usually come to the conclusion that people don't get wise until they're older. Hi, welcome to the Secret Men's Business Podcast. This is Joey Buzzardville. On today's show, we're going to go all the way to the USA. We're going to be speaking to a young man who's going to be talking to us about mindset. And I'd like to welcome to the show, Nick. I'm not going to say surname. Nick. Hi, Nick. How are you?
Hey, how are you?
You can say your surname. What's your surname?
So, how do you say my last name? It is pronounced Arhakos.
Arhakos. I know. It's like, I always have trouble with surnames doing this podcast, so I apologize. I don't mean any disrespect.
No, not at all.
Before we start, I guess, do you want to just tell our audience a little bit about you? Like, I mentioned that you're young. I know you've got a bit of a scruffy look at the moment, and you may look a little bit older, but just tell them, your age and some about your past, your history.
Yeah, sure. So, right now I am 22 years old. I actually just relocated to San Diego, California. I was living in New York City. I just recently did a cross-country trip. And when I got out here, I was like, the weather is beautiful. I like it here. So I'm actually staying here for right now. So the last 5 weeks, basically, have been a pretty big roller coaster.
Yeah. I mean, I love San Diego. That's a beautiful place. But at the same time, did you leave New York because of a particular reason?
I wanted to get out of New York because I hate the Northeast. Like, in the winter, it absolutely sucks. And I've always dreamed of having all year round weather that suits me. And, I'm such a better person overall when there's sun, when it's nice out. I like wearing shorts and a t-shirt. So if I can make my life a little bit easier with the weather and relocate somewhere, why not?
Yeah, it makes sense. So 22, my God. Like if I knew, like that's one of the things that I always think about. Like I wish I would have learned about life at a younger age, but look, everyone's got their own journey. But what was your moment or insight? Did something happen, or how did you get into a space of dealing with something or adversity to get to your journey of learning about yourself and about the brain?
Yeah, so basically, after I did 1 year of school, I went to the university at Albany in upstate New York, and I absolutely hated it. I hated every single second of school. Was I doing the right major? Maybe, maybe not. I went to computer science, and computer science was just not for me. And it just felt like I needed some time off from just life in general. Because your whole entire life, all you do is go to school, go to school, go to school, go to school, and then you go to school after you go to school, and you're like, when do I actually get to like hang out and be a kid? So I decided, you know what? Let me come up with some random excuse to tell my parents that I'm not going to school. So I actually started my first podcast. It was called Unknown Knowledge. And what I did was I brought people on to see what they did and why they liked what they did. So to really find like my passion, I was bringing people on with their passions and seeing how it could correlate in my life. From there, I went into personal training, and then my boss at the gym actually really taught me so much about the mindset that can bring me whatever I want. So from there, I kind of like took it and ran.
Yeah, I've interviewed a few young men, and it just comes up as a really amazing understanding that there are guys your age that are actually insightful, because I don't mean this disrespectfully, but there are a lot of people that probably look at your age generation and they make assumptions. Oh, they're lazy, or they don't really care, or they don't want everything, they're entitled. But then you meet these amazing men like yourself, and you didn't really have any adversity, you didn't have something happen, you just decided to have a break, you listened to yourself. So then from that, how did you then get into the desire to help people? Was that connected to the personal training, you think, or was that in you?
Yeah. So definitely, I mean, it was kind of both. I mean, it was definitely inside of me. I've always had this feeling of helping people, I loved, like, when I was younger, I absolutely loved helping people solve math problems, like the most simplest equations ever. I had like 6 different ways of coming at it. So if they didn't like the way that I first showed them, then I went to another way, and then I went to another way. And I just have such a passion for seeing somebody finally grasp something after just me teaching them.
God, your energy is so infectious. I can feel it already.
Thank you.
So the topic is called Desires Rewired. So I know that you've got like a list of things that you normally connect with. So do you want to just tell us a bit about what it means to you to have that understanding of the rewiring?
I mean, it's amazing to have this understanding at this point in my life. I mean, I tell people what I do, and they're like, "Wow, man, I wish I had you. I had your brain at your age." And I'm thankful for that. I'm very humbled too, because it takes people a long time to really understand life itself.
Hello.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and hey, and I never put anyone down for it. Like for me, I got lucky. I got a sick ass body, a sick ass life. For this reincarnation, and I am thankful that I can have all of these tools and be able to help people too, because there are so many people in this field that manipulate people, and I do not like that. And I'm happy that I can share all of my kindness and all the good to the people.
Yeah. So when you talk about rewiring and your desires, what does that mean? Like I know that there might be different interpretations, but
Mhm,
for you, yeah, I'm curious to know what it means for you.
mhm.
How do you interpret that? What's a
Yeah.
rewiring for you?
So really, it's like understanding what you truly love. Like if you can rewire your brain into being able to get the outside world to correlate with the inside part of you, then everything's going to come together. And why I call it rewire your desires is because so many people have so many desires that they just don't go after. They get to an age, they're like 50 years old, and they're like, man, I wish I did what you did. And I hear that all the time from people. And I'm
Yeah.
like, hey, you know what? You're still only 50. You have kids, so what? You can figure it out. There's so many different ways of going around obstacles. And that's really the joy and the fun in life, the creativity and how you can overcome obstacles and also loving the obstacles. Like life is filled with problems. So if you're going to be a person that's always looking at problems like, fuck this, like, then you're always going to have more problems and you're always going to say, oh, I never catch a break.
Yeah. I knew you were going to make me laugh. Um, with some of the things that you sent me a list of things, right? So let's just talk about a few of them. So
Yeah.
how would you advise someone to let go of, say, limiting beliefs, or say if they've got historical history with, say, their past where they were abused or they were told they weren't good enough? What would be a technique to rewire that process? What do you use? Or how do you
Mhm.
do it?
So, the biggest thing in this is understanding the person's personality. Because when you don't understand the person's personality, you only align with a certain type of person. But in this field, you need to be able, like, if the
Yeah.
person is a much more aggressive in the way that they want to rewire, then you're going to be aggressive. Then you're going to tell them, hey, you got to fucking do this today. But if you have somebody that's like, hey, I like to take it a little like laid back and chill, it's like, all right, man, like get it done when you get it done. And then you can finally get into it. But which topic was this again? I'm sorry.
Letting go of your limiting beliefs. Like,
So
so
letting
yeah,
go.
so this, yeah, I understand what you're saying about what to do, but I think you also understand with when you see people that they don't have the same understanding as you, so they've got
Mhm,
a story going on, and
mhm.
so how do they let go of the story that's telling them the opposite of what you want them to do?
Yeah, first of all, you have to make them aware. It's like, hey, you believe this. And they're like, no, I don't. And I'm like, no, you actually do, because this is not happening right now. And it comes out in conversation too, and people don't realize that. So the best way for me personally, I'll share my story of like how I like to let go, and then I'll share like how I do it with some clients and stuff like that. But letting go, I always bring it back to that we are literally infinite. So most of the time when we're holding on to a belief that limits us, um, we're not looking beyond our human structure with how big space and time is. Like, if you think that we're the only ones here, I think you should look out into space and look up some facts about how it actually is and how it's constructed, because it's literally endless.
Hmm.
So once you start having that belief system in your mind, then whenever you're going out and doing something, say your limitation, say it's money. Say you're like, man, I don't deserve money because you were always told money is hard to make. Sorry. Money's not grown on trees. Actually, money is fucking grown on trees. You know why? Because paper is made out of money. Like that's really it. I mean, money is made out of paper. I said that back.
Yeah, but I guess what you're saying is that if you actually tell yourself what you that you can't, then that's what will happen, right, in your life. And you know, it really is just about, see, the way that I look at about letting go, I just sort of like compare it to surrendering, because letting go to me really means that you know that you're going to be okay. Right? So when you know you're going to be okay and you don't have to worry about tomorrow because you know, then tomorrow just gives you abundant things. But if you worry about tomorrow, then your worries are going to be what comes tomorrow.
Exactly. Yeah.
I do find, I mean, like, I find it, again, I didn't get to let go until I was in my mid-40s, right? And so it is interesting how, you know, you understand. Do you think that you're going to experience stuff as you get older, or do you think this has set you up to deal with stuff because now you have this little secret?
I think I'll always be dealing with shit, no matter what. We're endless with problems. Humans are just always making problems because we've always had problems. So it's weird to not have them. So knowing that, being aware of it, I'll be aware of it, but I'll probably have to learn my lesson in the whole thing.
Yeah.
But also, I want to say about letting go too, is that most of the time letting go is not physical. It's all metaphysical. So when you tell somebody to let go of something, like, how do I let go of this mindset?
Yeah.
Like, how do you do that? And your definition of surrendering, and you know, the biggest thing is, it's crazy to say, it's like you tell the universe what you want, and then you say, you know what, if I don't get it, I don't care.
Yeah.
And leaving the attachment behind you is the biggest thing.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, totally. Like like my audience knows the foundation of why I do this podcast and the story, and that is, one day, Nick, I woke up and I was disabled. I couldn't walk. Right, and like 1 minute I'm walking, next minute not walking, and so for a very long time I couldn't let go of the anger and the fact that I was disabled. And I remember my coach kept saying to me, "You got to let go, Joe. You got to surrender." I'm saying, "What the fuck is that? I am letting go." And he goes, "No." And it went for a long time. I kept fighting it, and then finally one day I sort of got it, and I just let go. And I told myself, "It's okay. It's okay." And then I walked 3 days later. So the power of letting go is quite intense. When people let go, doors open. Right? I think not letting go is like having anxiety, isn't it?
Yeah, well, when you don't let go and you're always thinking about it, you're just in your head and it's going all day, and then you're not even in the present moment. So to let go, now it's even harder because you're like, how do I solve this problem? And you know how to solve the problem. It's just right in front of you.
Yeah.
But you're not aware of it because it didn't work the first time.
Yeah.
So when it doesn't work the first time, people are like, you know what? I'm gonna just bail on this and try something else.
Yeah. Or I think that they want the outcome to be what they thought they wanted. So, for example, for me, letting go was about accepting that I may not walk, right, and being okay with that, right. But because I wanted to walk for so long and I couldn't, that was the reason why I was still holding on. You mentioned in your in your profile that you use tarot cards to bring insight. I can see there's some tarot cards there on the wall behind you. So how did you get into that? And secondly, how do your clients find doing like coaching, rewiring work, and then all of a sudden the tarot cards come out? How have they found that?
Well, the way I got into it, my sister is very much into this work. She's probably the most spiritual human being I'll ever meet in my life. And she always read cards. So I was like, you know, I'll get a card reading from you, whatever. And then, you know, it was pretty accurate. And I was like, all right, I guess I'll keep going with these. And then one time she just gave me a deck of cards. She's like, play with them. So then I started going with them. And the way that I started with it is probably completely different. Like in the spiritual work, everything is completely different for everybody. There's no right or wrong. And it's always a great lesson to learn that there's no right or wrong in any type of work. So I started using a pendulum. I don't know if you're aware of what that is, but I just basically was starting to connect with my spirit guides. And then I would read the blurb, whatever card came out, and I would just basically say like, "Hey, is this it?" And I'd ask the pendulum to move a certain way, and if it was that, then it would move that way. And I did that for months, like every
Wow.
single
Well,
night.
just on yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just on myself.
Right.
And then I was like, you know what? I could probably try this out on my friends, but without the pendulum. So I started trying out with myself without the pendulum, and then I started trying out with my friends. And I started becoming very accurate with what the message had to be. And I know I'm pretty sure your next question is like, how does it like help in the space? Well, first let me
Yeah,
get to
yeah,
the other
like
one.
yeah, like just how did you like? I mean, like it's sort of it's interesting just listening to the fact that you just learned that yourself. Like I'm guessing that you haven't done any training or anything. You just organically stepped into it, didn't you?
Yeah, yeah, no, that's really
You
how
do
it
realize that you're a freak, right? It's like
no, I'm
it's you know the good way. It's amazing how you can learn stuff. You can so it's obvious that this is your calling, right? So
mm,
so then how do you use that with the clients? And again, how do they respond? Because that's the thing I'm interested in is like if they're coming in to get help with their letting go or their trauma, and then you pull out a card, are they open to what you think? Are they well they must be.
yeah, yeah. Well, the thing is that people are usually open to that, to like you doing it for the first time. They're like, whatever. All right, let's see what they say. And then when things come out, like when I say things that are about that person, they're like, okay, well, this is weird. How did you know that? I didn't tell you that. So then they're a little bit more interested, and they're like, all right, let's go a little bit deeper. And what's really cool about the cards is that you know what the spirit guides do is really guide. They don't tell you exactly, but they guide you. But when it's coming from a different person, they'll tell you exactly what's going on so that I can help them. So
Mm.
the things that are coming up in their life that don't make any sense that they've been working on for so long, now when they give me information through the cards, it helps me way more because when the person gives me information, there's so much blurred lines here and there, and I'm like, I don't understand why this is happening to you. And when you take it to the cards, it opens up such a big avenue, and it's like, okay, everything makes sense now.
Yeah, and that's a really good tool to have because it gives people confirmation of, you know, because sometimes talking to someone isn't enough, but then the cards confirm it, which is
Yeah,
random, and it gives them confirmation. Um, like, let's talk about men because this is a men's podcast. So,
of course, yeah.
as a young guy, like a 22-year-old, what do you think the current issues that men are facing today? You know, from your perspective, like when you look out into the landscape as a man, what do you see as your issues?
Nobody heals. Everybody is this big, tough, macho man. Oh, these problems, I'm just gonna push them straight down, and you just keep pushing, 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 and then at some point, people snap, they break, they just cry uncontrollably for hours because they have built up so much inside of them, so much trauma, and this is the biggest thing. Like men don't like to heal because growing up for me personally, and a lot of kids around my neighborhood, people were like, "Oh, men don't cry, only girls do." So that's why girls are so good at healing
Mm.
because they're not afraid to cry, they're not afraid to scream, they're not afraid to throw a tantrum. That's what they do. But guys, they don't do that. And I think if guys start to heal, less of their ego will come into conversation, and a lot of baggage that they hold on to will be released, and those limitations that they hold on to will finally be released because they're finally getting the trauma out of it.
Yeah. Do you feel that, you know, you mentioned your friends or people your age. Do you feel that guys your age group are getting it a lot more, or do you feel like it's still an issue? Because I know it's
Depends where you
changing.
go.
I know it's changing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like I mean, like again, this is an assumption, but I do feel that America, Australia is very similar, but America has got a strong masculine energy when it comes to college and sport and athletics and football and all that. So those guys changing? You think are they? Is it starting?
I think so. The big thing is that professional athletes are coming out and talking about mental health. And these are guys that you look up to. When you're 8 years old, you're like, man, LeBron James is crazy. And you're like, this guy is sick. But now he's coming out and he's like, hey, mental health is important. So just that avenue of opening up is great. But the thing that I notice a lot is that guys like to use other things like the gym to release a lot,
Or
but
sex
that
or
doesn't.
alcohol or gambling or
Yeah, and it doesn't do much. Like
yeah,
you really have to talk through it. You have to ask the hard questions. You have to talk about the hard questions. You have to do the hard things and have those hard conversations with peers and family members that have given you the trauma. And you're like, hey, I feel like this, and it's because it came from you. I'm not
yeah,
putting all the burden on you, but I just want you to know so that we could get through this together.
yeah.
And that's the biggest thing with guys. They don't,
Mm.
their ego's too big to do that. They're like, I'm going to be fine no matter what. I'm making mad money. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But it
I mean,
does matter.
your understanding of the fact that I think that was something imposed, like you were saying, and now that's being unraveled, right? So
Mhm.
how does a big masculine man talk to you when you're saying all this stuff to him? And then you pull out the tarot cards. Like, do you think again that because you're pretty easy to talk to and you're pretty, you got great energy. Do you think that is an advantage that helps people relax?
Yeah, the biggest thing is making the person comfortable. If you can make the person comfortable, they will open up to you no matter what. And if you force them to, it's not going to happen. So you have to go organically, where you go like small things, like, oh, how's your day been? Man, it's shitty. Like this girl that I just met, we went on a date, and now she's ghosting me, which is like not answering. If people
Yeah.
don't
We're
understand
not,
what
we're
that
not, we're not, we're not
terminology.
that old. Yeah.
People say stuff my age, and I'm like, what the hell does that mean? And I'm like, man, I'm old now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um,
So
but I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, well, I was gonna actually say, I just want to now get an opinion on because, like, I am, I'm in my 50s. You're in your 20s, right? I still feel 20. So I think that's an advantage for me. I love the fact that I don't want to be my age, so I can be with any age group. But what do you think your age group, can learn from older men like me? What are the things that we could, that you could look at us at and learn about with your life?
I believe patience. Patience is a big thing. I talk to a lot of people who are older, and obviously, you didn't have technology as you guys grew up. To be able to, like, you didn't have this type of platform. You would
We
have
had
to
we
be
had
on
we had like
radio.
we had nothing, mate. We didn't have anything. We just
Yeah,
had
you had
sticks
nothing.
and string. That was it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, I
So does that? Do you think that that for your generation you don't have that because of technology?
Yeah, I believe that technology is it's just giving so many opportunities to people. And you see kids younger than you. Like I see kids online that are like 19 years old, and they're like, "Here's how I made my first million." And I'm like, "Making a million by 19? That's crazy." And what happens is we have so many big expectations in life, especially from our parents. So when you see a kid who's 19 making $1 million on Shopify because they are open a store about basketball, you're like, man, like I gotta make money, and now that's your priority. It's not happiness anymore.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah,
Can I? Do you mind if I
the
add
pace,
something to that? Because I think this is
yeah, please.
interesting because it's something that I've been researching and struggling. So I love entrepreneurship, and I love it that when men can see opportunities to do what you're describing. And yes, if it's your passion, great. I wanted to ask you about that correlation between that and then going onto OnlyFans or those sites where they're doing sexual things or they're using
Mhm.
pornography or nudity to make money. So I've known through because I'm a therapist, I've known that there are men that have been addicted to porn or men that have been using sex as a way or sexual sites like that to make money. But you can tell by looking into their eyes that there's a lost soul there, right? So why do you think it's become such a massive revolution? Is it the money? They're doing things that I don't think they would normally have done 2, 3, 4 years ago.
Yeah, I think it's the combination of money and sex. I mean, who doesn't like money and sex?
Yeah.
It's
Well,
great.
well, they're not having sex. They're actually using their body they're using their body for other people to see them, and then
Okay.
and then they get it's like having a live porn person, right? And they make money off that. But the thing, and I love the fact that people can be entrepreneurial. But what you've just told me or said earlier about the passion, I think that's where I get concerned. Like, what's going to happen? Do you think there's going to be mental health problems from this? Just what I guess I'm asking from a young man's perspective. Or do you think that I'm being a little bit too probably too sensitive to it?
No, there's definitely going to be a lot of mental challenges to overcome. What they're doing is, so you're basically saying like they're modeling, like they're in like their
What they're
underwear
doing
and
is
stuff.
they're 21 years old, 20 years old, and rather than looking at their life purpose, they're using a sex like platform to make money because they just want to make money. Right? They're not doing it. So their brain or their philosophy or their authenticity is being washed away, and they're going down a path where they're just they're just showing their body and just doing things on camera, right? Which will come back to haunt them anyway. Which again, I'm not saying that's wrong, but it concerns me that we have this big, it's this massive generation of men that may go down that path, that may lose their path. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
get what you're saying.
Yes. What do you think?
The thing is that they're definitely not going after their passion, and they're feeding into just really fulfilling what they feel like is fulfillment.
Is it ego? Is it the ego thing you mentioned as well?
It's also the ego, because if you think about it, like there's so many things that go into this. It's like, okay, let's bring it back to expectation. Your parents want you to make money. Okay, do what you love. You hear it all the time. Do what you love. Do what you love. And it's like, hey, I love just doing this with my camera and making people look at me. So it's like, yeah, it's pretty cool. And then they stop there. They don't start exploring more. And I think that's the biggest issue within our society with work. When you're in a job that you do not like, it's not glorified when you leave it for something that you like, especially when you take a pay cut. People are like, what are you, crazy? What are you going to do with your life? It's like, well, now I'm going to be happy. Now I can rank up in the system that I actually enjoy a lot. And I think that young men specifically are misled because it's like, oh, I got to be the caretaker. I got to provide for my family. So now it's a big issue, and I believe that a lot of people are now pushing this narrative of now healing so much.
Yeah.
And I'm excited over the next 10 years. I just actually partnered with a really cool nonprofit organization. We're called the San Diego Psychedelic Society. And one thing that I have used a lot are psychedelics to heal. And it is really fun when you go through the trauma and then the next day everything's fine. You don't have to keep going back and doing it over and over. It just happens that instant, and you understand and you learn.
Yeah, that's starting to become popular here as well. I mean, like it is interesting. I know it's going off topic, but it's interesting how psychedelics were originally utilized in mental health in the 50s and all those, the 40s and all that. But then the 70s came around and people, I guess, used them in a different way, and then the government stopped. So I'm glad that it's come back, which it's taken a very long time. So we talked about what you can learn from me. What can I learn from you? What can my generation of men learn from the younger generation? Besides taking psychedelics.
I think what you guys can learn is that you're as young as us. It doesn't matter that you're 50 years old. Man, I'm 22. I could only see till 24 and die. I don't know when my life is gonna end. And I think that there's so many older people out there that keep pushing the narrative like, oh, I'm too old for this. I'm too old for this. But man, like, yo, you're 50. Like, it takes 2 years to really, like, if you're out of shape, you can get into really good shape. You can start going hiking. Once you retire, you can go do whatever you want to do. And I think we put such a big limitation on
I know, but can I not to sound defensive or anything, but I totally agree with you, right? And like as I said earlier, I don't feel my age. I'm not married or have a family, so I feel a bit freer compared to my mates who've got children. Because you can see the restrictions, but it's not restrictions. It's a change, right? But I also think that there is a tiny little bit of a pushback from your generation that making us feel old. You know what I mean? Like I've been to a number of venues, right? And I've been told to go home. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's tough.
Yeah, it is tough. And so it's like
you can't just go. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're Greek, I'm Maltese, so we know in Europe, right, the older generation is so respected, and when you go to Spain or something, it's like 11 o'clock at night, and there's old people everywhere drinking their coffee and all that. In Australia, and I'm sure in America, all the old people are in bed at 8 o'clock. So there's
Mhm.
no welcoming energy, and that's probably, I think, something that needs to change
Mhm.
for us to welcome that all generations, rather than thinking that, oh no, please don't go out, you're too old, or please don't try and date me because you're too old. And that's
Mhm.
where I think there's that whole thing where people say I can't, because it's embarrassing to be told. I mean, I didn't care, to be honest, but like it was hard to be told to go home.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I'm sorry that that happened to you.
No,
That's
it's
messed up.
cool. You know what I
Um,
said to them when I come back home? Guess what? You're going to be old too, and you're going to be uglier than me because you've got Botox. So
that's
that's the thing.
true.
Everyone gets old, and that's the thing where I don't know how we can fix that. How we can fix that? I know we love our grandparents when we're young, and we can say, "Oh, look, I got an uncle and an aunt and all that." So we know about old people, but what makes? How do we become? How do we bridge that?
I think it's because we've always been told to respect our elders, but our elders never respected us. And as we get older and we finally have a voice, we're like, "Hey, get the fuck out of here, Grandpa! We don't want you at the bar."
Yeah.
And I think it started from that perception of okay, like I have to go to my grandma and grandpa's because they're older and they want to see me. It's like, dude, I'm 6. Like I want to go play with my friends. Screw
Yeah,
going to
yeah,
grandma and grandpa.
yeah,
But it is always the best thing to do is always be nice in
yeah,
those
yeah.
situations.
Did that happen to you
And
though? Did that happen in? Because I'm listening to you, and that didn't happen in my family. I felt that I was born into a mutual respected. We had that mutual respect because I think
mhm,
it again. I'm not assuming anything about anyone listening, but I'm European, and that European thing. I think is sometimes a lot different to the Western world. Like, the whole way of, there's a lot more pushing to try and achieve things. There's a lot more, universal mentoring. I sort of see it as mentoring. Like my granddad and I were very close, and he's passed over now, and I still get messages from him. So
mhm,
I do think that you're right, because that's the majority. But there are probably a lot of people that have good connections with old people. I personally think it all boils down to the way you're brought up, like you were
mhm,
saying
yeah,
before.
I
It's
think
about
so too.
respecting people, women, life. And so you've been able to do that at a young age. Do you see your young friends doing the opposite?
So there definitely are some that are doing similar to me. There are some that are doing the total opposite, but they're unconscious of it. It's
Yep.
not their fault. It's nobody's fault because you're just programmed that way. And that's why this whole big boom of mindset is so powerful and so timely too, because we really need all of these other people to also be kind. Because in the generation of my guys, the guys that are my age, we're very harsh on each other. Joking around is not an easy thing to always be around. It's very harsh. There's a lot of cursing. There's a lot of like physical contact and stuff like that. And it's hard at a young age to understand how to go through that because when I was younger, I was like, I feel like this shouldn't be how we are, guys. Like this is weird. But I never spoke up because I was still my old self. I was still around all of those people. And when you're around, when you're in that environment all the time and no one else is speaking up like you, now you go into like your shy voice and you're like, guys, I think we should be nicer to each other. And they're like, shut up, you fag. And you're like, man, like we're not even supposed to use that word anymore. Come on,
Yeah.
like let's take that
So are
away.
you saying that there is like a internal tribe mentality where you put each other down?
Yeah, in a way, it's like when people make fun of each other and they're like, "Oh, it's all love," but like, what is love? Have you
Yeah, yeah,
ever experienced love? Like, you're saying it in a very derogatory way, and it feels like you want to have a one up on me, and like
yeah,
your ego wants to be better
yeah,
than my ego.
yeah.
You do this.
I mean, again, tell me your thoughts on this. I think that what you're describing, my perspective of that is that men have never, you mentioned the women before about the emotions and getting through it. And, I think that guys don't realize that to be whole, you have to also embrace your feminine side. And the
Hmm.
feminine side is the nurturing, loving side. And that's where I think fathers and coaches and ministers and teachers have taught men or boys to not embrace that. That's what you're saying before about boys don't cry, right? And I
Hmm.
think now we're realizing that we have to be vulnerable, right?
Hmm.
And that's where
100%.
hopefully we'll learn And I guess women have to be also a bit more masculine. You know, women need to stand up more and say, fuck off, I want that job, or I want better pay, right? So the world is slowly changing, that we're now becoming fully organic to what we're meant to be, male, female energy together, right? Because I think it's brave when someone says, I want to cry, piss off, leave me alone. I think it's really brave, and I love the men that are out there. And one last question, because I could talk to you for all day, is what is there anything at all that you just don't understand about what's going on with men, or what men are going through at the moment? Like that, your brain, you scratch your head and you go, "What was that? What's going on?"
That's a can you say that question again?
Like, is there anything happening in the landscape at the moment that you just don't understand that men are going through? So, for example, do you understand Me Too? You know, like, you know, what do you understand all the things that are happening around the world for men, right? But you just don't get it. You just go, what was that all about? Why are we doing this? Or why is that happening? And there might be nothing.
I guess what I would say is their vulnerability. Literally what you were saying. Like, why are you not vulnerable? Why won't you open up? Why, like, literally just opening up, being okay with sharing your feelings. Like, I just don't understand why people don't want to talk about it. Like, don't you feel fucking shitty inside? Like,
Yeah. Well, I think I think that you hit the nail on the head though, is just that they haven't been taught. Just to say, like, again, like, with that, I guess I was just wanting to also say what I don't understand is, what do you feel is the understanding around men's disconnection with consent? Like, with the whole, you know, date rape culture and the whole thing where men assume that they can take a girl on a date and just have sex with her. And that's another thing that they have to get out of their brain, is this entitled sexual, you know, I'm the man, I bought you dinner, I deserve to go home with you. Like, and then when they say no, you know I've been seeing a lot of documentaries coming out of America. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen here, but what's your understanding of that and why men still do that?
Well, I think it's how we came up through evolution. If you look back, all we did was basically find a mate, have sex, and then leave. So then, as we got older, as we started going through generations and generations, that didn't leave for until now. Really, like, this is the time.
No one really said anything until now. Like, it's pretty amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, and for me, it's mind-boggling, because I'm a person that likes deeper conversations. So if you don't stimulate me intelligently, then I don't even want to bother with you. I don't think we'll have fun together. Like, if I can't get on that deeper level, and I think that's what guys really need to do, is like, hey, if you want to bring a girl home that night, you still can. All you have to do is get deeper with her. You have to get her comfortable. And if she does not want to proceed in anything, just let it go. And then once you let it go, once you stop giving her attention, she's going to be all over you.
Yeah, I mean, it is a sort of like, it is an entitlement thing. Like, you know, even when they say no, there's still this push, you know, and I know that it's going to take a while because it's a cultural thing. I mean, I think the Harvey Weinstein, all the Me Too stuff has been a real big eye opener, because it really brought the information to everyone. But, you know, in saying that, I just saw a documentary made in Australia where, like, they had these 17-year-olds, and they were all going to parties, and they didn't understand that having sex with someone that wasn't consensual was rape if it was someone you know. You know what I mean? That really blew me away. The guy said, "Oh, but no, it's not rape. I know her." They thought that rape was only when it's someone you don't know and it's someone creepy, you know, someone older. And so that was really interesting, going, wow, even the girls said that. The girls didn't know either. So there was this whole generation of people going out there, getting drunk, getting raped, and they didn't think it was rape. They thought it was accepted because that's just the culture. So it is
terrible.
Well, I just think that's still something. It's just, you know, like you're saying, it's tribal. We still have a long way to go, but we're getting there.
Yeah.
Dialogues like this allow us to get there. Mr. Nick, thank you so much for talking to us. You're very wise. You're very old. You've got an old soul. You're very insightful. So it's been very interesting to talk to someone of your age and get some ideas. So thank you for everything. And if anyone wants any information about you, I'll put all your information below, and they can contact you if they want to.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, if you guys want to reach out to me, I'm on Instagram at Nick Arhakos, NickArhakos. It'll be in the links down below, though, in the description within this podcast. Also, I am a part of the San Diego Psychedelic Society, and we are taking donations because we don't want government funding it. It's a whole big thing. I would love to explain to you, but I know that we're.
I'll have you on here again, and you can
Hell yeah,
talk about with
definitely.
that. Yeah, because that's
Yeah,
actually a topic that I've been wanting to talk about. So yeah, we'll definitely have you on again. So thank you, my
yeah.
friend. Have a great night, and we'll speak to you soon.
Thank you, thank you.
You've been listening to the Secret Means Business podcast. Now, the podcast is out on Mondays, and don't forget we have Retro Thursday, so you can catch up on all the older episodes. Now, don't forget to hit subscribe and like so you get notified of all our up and coming episodes. Now, I just want to remind everyone that the Secret Means Business TV channel is celebrating its first birthday, so make sure that you catch up on all the shows that you've been missing and watch and subscribe. Till next time, everyone. Peace. Have a great day.